And then he said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills.
I can't catch a break, guys.
Yeah.
Get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys.
People think, oh, well, cleaning your room, that's just a cliche. It's like, yeah, really, eh? Just go ahead and try it.
If people had any idea how powerful sleep is for healing from anything, and the fact that it's free.
My mind is absolutely bulletproof, solid as a rock.
Podcast. And welcome to the Fight and Fit podcast. I'm doing this one on my own today. I said I'd do one on yoga last week for this week, and I'm doing it now. I have a lot to talk about with yoga. I'm going to try and go into a little bit more detail on the journey I went on in Thailand and stuff like that there, and what I learned and why I found it so enlightening. So here we go. First off, yoga is a movement practice. The asanas are a movement practice, but really yoga is a spiritual journey towards enlightenment, and it literally gives you a step-by-step guide to reach enlightenment. Now, that step-by-step journey has a lot of little speed bumps and stuff that you have to overcome. I'm going to explain those and what you're supposed to do and why they're there and why they're important. I'm only really going to be able to explain the early ones. As we go a little bit later on, I haven't really delved into it that much myself, so it does get a little bit esoteric and a little bit more complicated and harder to understand. Well, for me personally anyway. So first off, yoga has 8 limbs. The 8 limbs of yoga are basically the journey to enlightenment. So the first one are the yamas, the second one is the niyamas, the third one is asanas, the fourth one pranayama, the fifth one pratyahara, the sixth one dharana, the seventh one dhyana, and the eighth one samadhi. So that is Sanskrit. Sanskrit is like the language that all of the asanas or all of the postures are all named in when you do yoga and you delve into it a little bit deeper. But the yamas are basically restraints. They're the yamas and the niyamas, they're basically like commandments for yoga, and if you abide by these, they'll make you a more relaxed, nice person. They take away a lot of stresses and suffering from your day-to-day life. So the yamas, the restraints, they start off, there's 5 of them. There is ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-harming or non-violence. Basically, if you're a violent person, it's really hard for you to get enlightened because you're troubled by anger, basically. Then with the next one after that is satya, which is truth. You have to be a truthful person. After that is asteya, so it's non-stealing, so you don't want to be basically stealing stuff. After that it's brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is basically non-lust, so non-sort of desire. You don't really want to be being like, oh, she's a fit bjorn or anything like that there. You want to make sure that you have some sort of control over that sort of lust. And then after that is aparigraha, and that basically means non-hoarding or non-sort of you don't want to be overly obsessive with or overly attached to the things that you have, because if you're overly attached to the things that you have, when you lose them, it causes great pain, and you can't really be enlightened with that sort of pain. After that, you've got the niyamas. The niyamas are saucha. Saucha basically means cleanliness, or when we were in Thailand, they called it purity. It basically means like purity of the soul. Then after that, you've got santosha, which is contentment or gratitude, or like the level of happiness you have with what you already have, and just being content with it. When you're content, it's just like there's a load of pressure lifted off your shoulder. You don't have to chase anything. After that, you've got tapas, which basically means zest for yoga. I kind of think of it as like a passion for the practice, passion for chasing it down and getting it done. After that, you've got svadhyaya, which is self-study. So when you go through this journey, you'll find out what sort of person you are, what your limitations are, what biases you sort of have, whether you're kind of angry or whether you're coveting or whether you're jealous, all that sort of things. Like if you're if you, let's say, have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you lust after stuff, or you lust after them, and then someone hits on them, well, then you're going to get angry and you won't be able to control that sort of emotion. After a self-study, you've got Ishvara Prana Dhyana, which basically means surrender. So you got to sort of let go. At the end of every yoga session, there should be a Shavasana, which is basically a 10-minute meditation. It can be 15 minutes, it can be 20 minutes, whatever it is, but it's like after you do all your stretching and after you do all of your postures, and you're tired and there's loads of effort built up, and then it's like after that effort you just get to relax. And when you're done and the lights are off and you're just laying there in corpse pose with your palms open, your feet turned out, just eyes closed, just breathing, it feels really, really nice, and it actually gives you permission to let go. And until you actually do something like that there, you don't really understand how it feels. And once you do it and you know how it feels, it's like you sort of feel what it's like to let go and sort of surrender. After that, so that's the yama and the niyamas. We've got the asanas. The asanas are the postures. What the postures basically do is they make sure that your body is in good health. So if you are like always up on your shoulders and you have all this tension, like you feel that whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it, like you feel like you're up on your shoulders. Like if you sit like this all day with your shoulders up around your ears, like you will feel like someone who has their shoulders up around their ears all day. You'll feel tense, you'll feel stressed, you'll feel like, not angry, but you'll feel like you just have that little bit of extra pressure on you. Whereas if you relax, roll your shoulders down your back, and lean back, you'll feel like you're more laid back. There's a reason why we have all those sort of phrases, like, oh, he's really laid back or he's really uptight. And I think that is through some sort of like relation to like your posture and your physiology have a very, very big influence over your mental state. And so like, again, if you're up in your ears like this here, you'll feel like someone who's up in your ears like this here. If you're relaxed, your shoulders are down your back, you'll feel super laid back. But also like the asanas make it easy for you to relax in a proper position that's not stressful. Like the main reason why you do your asanas is basically so you can sit in full lotus and with an upright posture in a very comfortable manner. So like full lotus is basically like your arms crossed but for your legs, and your feet are up inside the crease of your hips. The opposite ones is, if you've ever tried it, it's really, really difficult. For me anyway, if you have tight hips, like it's incredibly uncomfortable. And the whole reason part of the reason why you do the asanas is so you can sit there in an upright position comfortably, so you can meditate with full concentration. And when you do that, it's like, I haven't done it yet because I can't do full lotus. I can do half lotus, and I've sat fully relaxed and meditated for a while, and it does feel really nice. Like it's just like, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's really hard to describe. I would have been someone who would have been very like analytically minded, very intellectual, very sort of in my head, very sort of like if this then that. But yoga has given me a different perspective. It's maybe more like airy fairy and more feely. So when you're more in tune with how stuff feels, like meditation really helps you just get that sigh of relief. And it's, if you're really stressed all the time, like you do need that. Like if you're doing loads of high intensity interval training and all that sort of crack, it helps a lot. But basically, the asanas help you sit in full lotus with your posture perfect, with all your chakras aligned, and when all those are aligned, you can basically meditate and reach higher states of consciousness. Basically, that's the whole point. After that, you've got the pranayama, pranayama, which is the breath or life force. Pranayama doesn't necessarily mean breath, it means life force, which is food and breath. Every breath that you breathe in basically gives you life. Every breath that you exhale is like basically noxious air or toxic air or whatever it is. I know it's not literally like that, but these guys didn't have science back then, and this is how they sort of explained it. If you eat, what are the things? There's tamas. There's three sort of types of food. Basically, one gives you energy and makes you vital and makes you healthy, and that's basically raw vegetables that the yogis say. Then you have another type of food. You can look. I'm not 100% sure on the names of them, but is it vritti? No. But basically, there's another one that's like neutral. It doesn't really give you energy, but it doesn't really take it away from you either. It's just like it does the job. And then there's foods that take away from your energy and take away from your consciousness and just make you feel lethargic and take away from your health and your vitality. And you want to sort of breathe and get as much vitality as you possibly can, and you want to eat to get as much vitality as you possibly can and control the life force that you have, so you're living with a lot of energy. If you have a lot of energy, you can do more and you can reach better states of consciousness. Like when you're tired, the world seems like a much more negative place than it has to be. And when you're full of energy, you're a lot more content with the world. So the next one after that is pratyahara. So that's basically withdrawal of the senses. So when you're meditating, you bring yourself into the present, and you start noticing different things. So you notice that you hear stuff, and that you notice that you don't have to try to hear anything. It just appears. And what you want to do is you want to sort of like come away from identifying with your senses. So like when you see something, it's like it's really hard to explain actually. See, once we start getting up to here, I do get a little bit confused. But what I do know is that your senses cause your desires. So like if you hear stuff, you want to hear nice stuff. If you hear harsh stuff, you want to move away from it. And that's kind of where like suffering comes. It kind of leads into that. So like if you decide that bad music is bad music, well then you won't want to listen to it. And while you're listening to it, you're technically suffering because you have to listen to it. But if you listen to sweet music, you have that. It's nice. It's a nice sort of feeling. So then you have that sort of good and bad sort of mentality. Whereas like if you withdraw from the senses and you just notice it as a sound rather than as good or bad, well then that's when you become one step closer to enlightenment. And it's the same with smell, it's the same with touch, it's the same with taste, it's the same with emotional feelings and stuff like that there as well. Your senses sort of lead to your desires. And then after that you have dharana. I can't say that properly. Dharana. Dharana is basically focus or concentration. And so after you've done step 1, which is yama, and then step 2, and then step 3, which is the asanas, and then you've mastered your pranayama, and you've got your withdrawal of your senses, then you move on to focus. So then it's just basically how well you can focus. This is where I haven't even touched this sort of stuff yet. I've tried. My focus is really bad. My girlfriend Ashton says I've got ADHD. I don't want to think that I do, but it could be true. I do drink a lot of coffee and all that jazz now. But focus, it's just basically your ability to direct your attention. When I meditate, one of the first things that I do is I try and bring my attention to my breath. So instead of focusing on what I can see or what I can do this or different thoughts, especially thoughts, instead of going on my thoughts, I focus on the sensation of breath. And then as soon as I get distracted, I just bring it right back to breath. I just try and experience breathing as much as I possibly can. And while I'm trying to do that, it's really hard to think of other things, if that makes any sense. Then after a focus, so you want to flex that. That's like a muscle, and you want to get better and better and better at that. Eventually, like you can master it and be able to direct your focus and change it from anything to anything. From like, let's say, so the pain that you have in a posture. So let's say you're doing a forward fold, or you're doing like a wide leg forward fold. You can really feel it in your hips or your hamstrings. You're doing a frog or something like that. There, you change your focus from that pain or that sensation to the breath, and being able to direct that is dharana. After that, you've got dhyana, which is basically, it says here, state of meditation. I'm not too sure if that's right. But then after that, you've got samadhi, which is basically the divine or enlightenment. Dhyana is what is dhyana? I'm actually not too sure. I need to look that up. I'll get back to you on that one. If you want to message me in a week's time and I'll be able to come up with it. But then after you go through all of these steps, you eventually reach Samadhi, which is the divine, and that's basically enlightenment. So you become one with God or whatever it is. And I know it sounds super airy-fairy. I'm not sure if I really believe it. But when I was in Thailand and I was doing the yoga course, we got these Buddhist monks who do live in monastery and all that sort of crack in Thailand. And did I mention I went to Thailand? And they only spoke Thai, so we had one of our teachers was Thai as well, and she translated first. And one of the questions I asked was like, "Have you guys reached Samadhi?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, what's it like?" And they were just like, the way our yoga instructor just said that they said it was that it was just pure bliss. It's just pure bliss, and you have no idea what it's like. You have no idea how good it feels, or what it's like. You just don't care, or you don't. Not that you don't care. It's just you have no need for anything else other than, it's like pure contentment. If that makes any sense. And the whole goal is to go. The whole goal to go through all these stages is to basically eliminate suffering from yourself. So yogis can basically, they're content with life, and they're content with how they feel with everything. They're almost immune to suffering. And one of the reasons people suffer is because of their posture. Their posture is just, they're up in their shoulders, their lower back is tight, and then when they move, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. They have no sort of vitality. And when you reach the divine, it's like stuff like that doesn't matter anymore because you don't experience it. So basically, the stuff that I learned from yoga is basically like it's a movement practice. It eliminates bad posture. Bad posture leads to injuries. When you have perfect posture, I don't have perfect posture yet. My shoulders are pretty good. I do sit forward a little bit, but it's possible to sit up straight properly all the time. But my shoulders are pretty mobile, and I have very little injuries in my shoulders. When I lift weights with my shoulders, it feels good. It doesn't feel bad. Whereas like if I go to squat and my feet are too wide and I feel the stretch and all that jazz, like it doesn't feel as good as it would like a shoulder press. And that's really hard to explain to someone who's poor posture, because I can see when they do a shoulder press and they're all up and hunched over and they literally can't open up their chest. They don't, because the muscles in their back are weak and their muscles here are too tight. So when they go to shoulder press, instead of it being the motion where the biceps come all the way up behind their ears and their back is switched on to stabilize, they are hunched forward and they have to fight against those tight muscles down here. They have to really struggle to use those weak muscles in their back. So when they come up, it comes forward and they have to look up, and this compensates in the low back, puts pressure in the spine, and it's a really uncomfortable thing to do. Whereas like for me, because my shoulders are open, not 100%, but because they're open, I can press over my head with like little difficulty, and I can start loading on the weight without any risk, not without any risk of injury, but with like very confident that I've no risk of injury, where like I have no nervousness about that whatsoever. And that's what a movement practice gives you. It takes you out of your head, it puts you into your body, and it gives you confidence in your ability to move. And confidence, I don't mean like arrogance or like that. I just mean that like you know you're safe when you're doing it. You know you can push your limits and not really hurt yourself. Whereas like with squatting, if I get a heavy weight on my back and I go to squat, like my ankles turn out, my feet turn out, my ankles come in, I have flat feet, and it's really hard for me to drive my knees out. Brandon's always telling me, like, he's slagging me because every time I squat, my heels turn in and my ankles turn out. I've seen it myself, my foot literally falls in. I've seen it on my shoes as well. It's not good. And weak feet are a big limiting factor in loads of stuff like powerlifting and sprinting. It leaves you more prone to injuries in football, ACL tears and knees knocking in. And if you have a good movement practice and you develop it, like right now, I'm only bloody like, let's say a white belt or a blue belt or whatever it is in yoga. I don't really know. But I'm like a lot better at it than I was when I first started, and my movement and mobility is way better. I'm a lot stronger as well. But I know how to get better. Whereas before I was completely clueless. I've done my PT stuff, I've done my strength and conditioning stuff, stretching. Like you don't learn that much. You don't learn that much about stretching. You don't learn that much about your body and how to actually lengthen muscles. You don't learn how to do that when you do a PT course. You learn basically 10 seconds is just for relief after you work out. 10 seconds in each sort of stretch. You have your cross your body, you have over the head, you have your basic like touch your toes. That's about it. And then if you want to lengthen it, they say basically do it for 30 seconds. And that's about it. There's no sort of experience in it. There's no sort of feel into it. But when you do yoga, it's like you spend way longer in these poses and you build up to them. Like there's this idea in yoga called a peak pose. And the peak pose is basically like, let's say it's a split. You have to do the splits. So like the whole way through your session, you're doing stretches that will stretch the muscles that will individually, that will lead you to doing the full splits better, and you will make gains in your mobility out in the peak pose. Now again, it'll be tough. You'll be using muscles like one of the limiting factors for, let's say, doing the splits is weak glutes and tight hip flexors. So what you'll be doing is you'll be doing like, let's say, glute bridges. So you switch on your glutes loads and you'll be stretching out your hip flexors. Before that, you'll be stretching out your tight hamstrings. And then while you're warm and after you've put out all that effort, you'll try your best at the last one to do the splits on one side and then you do the other one. And after you've tried so hard and you've released so much tension, then at the very, very end, you just lay back and you do your shavasana and you have a really, really good meditation, because like you feel your body almost like pulsing with energy. I know that sounds really, really weird, but like you do feel that. Like one of the cues that I hear all the time when you're doing meditation is, like feel your body, absorb your practice, feel every cell in your body vibrate with energy. And like your cells aren't vibrating. I don't think your cells are vibrating with energy, but like experientially you feel that, if that makes any sense. Like you feel yourself literally just like almost pulsing. You feel your pulse in your arms, like you absolutely do, because you're so still. But it's really cool, and you can see yourself develop. Like you can see yourself get better and better with each one, and then you notice, like I notice with running especially, like after you do some hip opening stretches and then you go for a run, you feel way better. Like running, your stride is easier. It's easier to run faster. It's not as hard. It's not as intense, which some people might like because they want the intensity. But it's like you can bring the intensity, but you can bring it at a higher level now because your hips are open. But yeah, so as a movement practices are really, really good because they help your experience with your body. As a coach, like I've seen people come in here and, like their training age for, let's say, their movement practice is 0. Like they have no kinesthetic awareness. Well, maybe not none, but like very, very little. If I say, bring your arms up overhead, they'll do this. They'll bring their hands like literally right above their head. Like they won't bring them up. They won't have their arms in a good position. They won't have their shoulders in a good position. Like, and it's like, I'm not blaming them right like that because they've never done it, but like they have a long way to go to get anywhere close to competence, if that makes sense. And it just holds them back in terms of their health and fitness goals. Like one of the cool things about being mobile as well is that like you build muscle in the right places. So like if your shoulders are up here like this, you'll have overdeveloped traps and you'll have a weak back and you won't be able to row properly. If you want to develop your back, you won't be able to do pull-ups properly. Like you won't be able to do an overhead press. Like one of the analogies, I don't know if this is 100% true. Like everyone always says, the stereotypical yoga teacher, it's like they all have like a big bum. And the reason I think they have that, like big bums, is because they've well-developed glutes. And the reason they've well-developed glutes is because they have fully mobile hips and they can activate the muscle properly. Whereas like if you have someone with really, really tight hips, their glutes are going to be underactivated. They're not going to be able to use them. Like when you're sprinting or if you're deadlifting and you don't have that mind-muscle connection with them, you're not going to be able to squeeze them and make it grow the same way someone who does have that mind-muscle connection would. Some other cool things that yoga has taught me. It's taught me about it's told me that your breath, your posture, and your mind state or your mental state are like, they're so linked. They're so linked. Like if you go down with your head down, your chin down, it works both ways. Like if you walk like this here, it's because you probably feel bad. Do you get me? And you've been like let's say you're low on the hierarchy and people bully and they poke you all the time, you just have your chin down, you're just trying to avoid contact with people, you're trying to avoid being a big thing, and you're trying not to take up any space just to avoid conflict. Whereas like, and you feel like someone who's like that, who's doing that, which is kind of sad. But if you, or let's say your chest is open, you're expansive, you're expressive, you're someone who's confident, like you feel it in your body, you feel way better. Like even in my tone, even when I'm explaining this, I can feel it. When I bring my arms up like this here, I feel like I'm more confident, like I can speak louder and deeper and like I can say more. I know that sounds super weird, but it makes you feel better. It feels like you're a more confident person. What else? Your breath. Your breath is a big thing as well. A lot of people don't know how to breathe properly either. They breathe into their chest, so they're shallow. They don't know how to breathe into your belly. In yoga, there's this thing called the 3-part breath, where you inhale, you breathe in through your nose. You can breathe out through your mouth as well, it doesn't matter. But mainly they breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. You breathe in, you breathe all the way into your belly, you breathe all the way into your chest, and then you breathe all the way into your shoulders. So you breathe into your belly, then the chest, then the shoulders. And then when you exhale, it's the shoulders, then the chest, then the belly. And then it comes in. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. But that's basically like when you breathe like that there, you get much more energy. Like if you don't breathe like that and then you start breathing like that, because you get so much more oxygen, you might even feel a little bit dizzy after it, which is kind of cool. There's loads of stuff like you do like Kapalabhati breathing in yoga, and this is all trying to play with the mental state that you have, and it's really cool. Like when you do this, you're more excited and you have more energy. Kapalabhati breathing is like you basically inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose. I'm not going to do it now because I'll snot all over the place. But as you do it, like you inhale, your belly comes out, and you exhale, your belly comes in, and you do it like through your nose. I don't want to do it through my nose, but that's basically. And when you do that, it changes. Like you can do it now. You can pause the video and start going. And even doing it through your mouth, you can still feel it. You can feel that your energy goes up. So you've more sort of your adrenaline goes up. I don't know if it's your adrenaline, but like it feels like it does. And when you do that before a session, like let's say in yoga, you're about to do some really, really hard stuff. Like yoga's not all relaxing. Yoga's not all easy stretching, and it's like yoga's pretty tough. Like if you go, there's a cool thing where you just go from down dog to knee to elbow, and then knee between the elbows, and then knee to the opposite elbow. Do that 5 times on each leg. Like you'll have a good sweat going on there, and it's like it's hard to hold, and you have to pump yourself up to do that. And the whole time you're doing it, your mindset like is really important. Like you can be talking yourself out of it, being like, this is so hard, this is really difficult, I want to stop. It's really like your muscles are tired, you just want to relax, but then you push through, and your breath has a big part of that. So like instead of thinking and going through the negative thought loop of going like relax, stop, rest, you bring your attention to your breath. Inhale up, exhale down, inhale up, exhale down. And when you do that, your endurance goes up. You can do more because you're not focusing on what you're thinking, you're focusing on how you move, or you're focusing on how you breathe instead, and you're trying to do that well instead of being in your head. Because when you're in your head, like you overthink things, and you're like, if you're smart, like you'll come up with a really good argument as to why you have to stop, and that's what I think is really funny. What else have I learned? It helps you be more vital. It helps you prevent injuries. If you want to get into the spiritual side of things, Alan Watts, listen to any sort of thing on YouTube. There's loads of stuff on YouTube with Alan Watts. He basically brings the Buddhist philosophy to the Western world, or the Western man, or whatever that is. And he is really cool for explaining stuff. He'll do a way better job of explaining it. But Alan Watts is really cool. Is there any other stuff as well? Yeah, there's. I'm reading this book called BKSA Anger's Light on Yoga. There's a load of information in that that's really, really interesting. I don't have it down yet. I've only started it, but everything I've read so far has been really, really cool, and it's just giving me a really, really interesting perspective on self-control. Control. Yoga is all about control. It's all about being able to control yourself, and then once you get that control, then you let it go. And it's really interesting to do that, because like you work so hard to master it, and then you just let it go and you just relax. And when you do that, it feels really nice. And I wonder if Peter can do a word count how many times I've said and. But one of the metaphors in BKS Iyengar's light on yoga is the chariot metaphor, and that is basically the self is basically the guy riding the chariot. He's controlling it, and then the ego or the mind is basically the reins, and then the horses are basically your senses or your desires, and the pastures that the horses are trying to get to are the horses are your senses, and then the pastures are basically your desires. And what you got to do is you got to be the self. You've got to control the reins with your mind, and control your horses or your senses to not go and eat every single bloody thing in the field. You got to stop. You got to direct them to wherever you want to go. And when I thought about that, it's broken into those three different parts, like the self, which is like your higher being, who you want to be as a person. Like everyone has this sort of thing called the self. I've been going into psychology and all sort of stuff as well, and there is this idea of the self. Look up Jungian psychology of the self. It's basically like your perfect person or your ideal who you should be, if that makes any sense. That's like basically like your higher self. And if you are going to a state of mind where you can be that person for a while, and then you can control your mental state, because your mental state is not, and your thoughts are not your higher self. They're something else. They're influenced by your desires, they're influenced by your habits, they're influenced by your experience, and your higher self is outside that, if that makes any sense. But basically, you want to be your higher self, and you want to control the mind, and because you're not your mind. A lot of people think they're their thoughts. They're not. You're not your thoughts. You're a thing that watches your thoughts. So you watch your thoughts, and you control your thoughts, and you control your desires through your thoughts. So again, you can look at one situation one way and do a completely different thing, and look at it a different way and end up with a completely better result. Like the Bible does cool stuff with it. Like there's a story where some guy gives each person a piece of gold or whatever it is, and he's like, or 10 pieces of gold, and he comes back, and one of them, a week later or something, one of them comes back and he buried his gold and then came back and gave it to him. He was like, look, I took great care of it. And then one of them went out and lost it all. He literally lost it all. Or not literally, like spent it and bought stuff and all sort of crack. And then one person like basically invested it and came back with more gold. And whoever gave him the gold the guy who lost it, he gave him a wee pat on the head. The guy who made more money, he was like, oh, fair play. Like, good job. And then the guy who just buried it and didn't do anything with it, he was like really mad at him and really annoyed with him because he didn't do anything with it. He just like protected and didn't experience anything. He basically just stayed in the shell. And like the mindset of those three different people is completely different. And don't know what my point was with that, but it was cool, guys. You should really try it out. Yeah, if you go through all these paths of yoga, you'll end up enlightened. If you'll end up with a cool body. So you'll end up with a yogi's body, which is a pretty vital body. You'll have more energy, you'll be kinder. You'll have less mental anxiety. You'll have less stress. You'll feel good in yourself, and you'll have no injuries, which is pretty cool. Like a lot of people use yoga to treat scoliosis and stuff like that there as well. But also it's fascinating to experience all these different states that like different breath does, that different postures give you. Like try it. Like one of the postures is child's pose. After you do like a really difficult pose and you go into child's pose, like it's like heaven. It just feels so really, really good, and it's cool going through all those different experiences. And I would recommend everyone does try it for that. And if this was a little bit out there for you, sorry, but like I would recommend you try it. If you try it and start going down this path, like that's it. I think you'll understand me a little bit more. And that's it for the Fight and Fit podcast on yoga and my perspective on yoga. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks very much, guys.